Something strange is going on with Jim Carrey. He recently showed up in Paris looking very different. And now, with Katt Williams speaking out about Hollywood's secrets, fans are taking things even further. Katt Williams has long argued that Hollywood punishes people who speak out. He said on camera that his whole intention when he entered the industry was to become a whistleblower they couldn't knock off because, in his words, they get all the whistleblowers.
Look in the camera and say,
look, let me explain something to you. I'm not scared to say nothing. I'll say it.
No, don't say it. No.
An imposter? I had researched my whole life on what the entity was before I got there, you know. My intention was to get in there and kick up some dust and try to become a whistleblower that they don't knock off. Because, you know, they get all the whistleblowers.
And now fans think Jim Carrey's timeline might be the clearest example of what that actually looks like. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start with what triggered this whole conversation. Jim Carrey was invited to the 51st Cesar Awards in France, the French equivalent of the Oscars, to receive an honorary award for his lifetime of work in film. He gave part of his acceptance speech in French. He seemed relaxed, warm, comfortable. He even joked with the audience. But nobody online was talking about the speech. The moment those clips hit social media, people started comparing them to older footage. His eyes looked lighter. His voice was softer. His energy was completely different. The Jim Carrey the world knows is loud, unpredictable, impossible to contain. He is the man who made an entire career out of being unable to sit still. Rubber-faced, unfiltered, incapable of playing it safe. The man on that Paris stage was still, measured, calm in a way that felt deeply unfamiliar to anyone who had been watching him for 30 years. And that is when the clone theory started trending. Fans were posting side-by-side comparisons, pointing to his eyes, his jaw, his laugh, the way he carried himself. Comments saying there is no way that was Jim Carrey were getting tens of thousands of likes within hours. Some people said he didn't seem like himself. Others said he looked completely different. A few even claimed he had been replaced. And yes, the word clone started trending. When the red carpet clips hit the internet, fans began picking apart everything. They pointed to his eyes, saying they looked more blue than brown. They said his energy was unrecognizable. One person wrote online that there is no way in hell that was Jim Carrey. Others said the whole thing felt off in a way they couldn't fully explain. And at the center of all of it, Jim Carrey, standing on a stage in Paris, smiling like nothing had ever happened. Now, to be fair, people change. Jim is older now, faces age, voices shift. Lighting can make eyes look different. And yes, celebrities sometimes get work done, but that hasn't stopped the speculation. Supporters of the clone theory say the biggest clue isn't his face, it's his energy. They say the old Jim was wild, loud, unpredictable. The Man from the Mask and The Truman Show had a certain spark that seemed completely absent on that Paris stage. Many people have speculated that this isn't Jim at all, that the real Jim was silenced a long time ago for speaking out against the powers operating in the shadows. And here's the thing, the deeper you look at Jim Carrey's actual timeline, the stranger the story starts to look. Because Jim Carrey was not just a funny guy who made movies. For decades, he was one of the most unpredictable, most genuinely provocative voices in Hollywood. And he said things other celebrities simply would not say. He stood at a Hollywood red carpet and told a reporter on camera that he didn't believe in personalities, that he didn't believe the reporter existed as a person, that none of it, the red carpet, the awards, the entire machinery of celebrity, was real in any meaningful sense. He was completely calm when he said it, not performing, not doing a bit, genuinely trying to tell you something true about the world he was standing in the middle of. And the reporter kept pushing back, trying to get him to play along. And Jim just kept going deeper. He said he believed we are a field of energy dancing for itself, He said peace lies beyond personality, beyond invention and disguise. He said he didn't believe in icons and didn't believe any of it mattered. The reporter looked uncomfortable. The camera kept rolling. Jim didn't flinch. That clip went viral years ago. Back then, people said he was just being spiritual. Others said he had seen the dark side of fame and was processing it out loud. Now, fast forward to Paris, and fans say this version of Jim seemed genuinely excited to play the part again, smiling, joking, acting like everything was normal. Did something suddenly change? Could Jim have reversed those deep convictions overnight? The internet does not think so. He spoke at award ceremonies about capitalism without a conscience. He gave speeches that named specific political evils in rooms full of the very people who benefit from those systems staying intact. He took on the American right wing. He named contempt for truth, hatred of immigrants, greed, and the abuse of power. He said shamelessness is not and will never be a superpower. That combination, the warmth, the humor, the willingness to say the hard thing anyway, made him genuinely difficult to dismiss. You couldn't write him off as bitter or angry. He seemed like he was having the time of his life while dismantling everything the room was built on. He also showed up at what looked like an industry event and grabbed a microphone to start talking about secret symbols, about how entertainment exists to keep people distracted and docile, about meetings in the woods where powerful people gather. He framed it loosely as a bit, but the specifics were precise in a way that pure improv usually isn't. He named talk show hosts by implication. He described a system in detail. He said he was there tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. The room laughed nervously. Jim kept going, and he was not wrong that whistleblowers pay a price. He went on national television and publicly questioned pharmaceutical companies and vaccine schedules on a major news program. He didn't hedge. He said directly what he believed and stated clearly he was willing to keep talking about it regardless of the blowback. That interview brought the kind of response that doesn't go away quickly. Medical establishment pushback, coordinated media criticism, the full weight of a narrative being organized against him from multiple directions at once. And after that period, Jim got quieter on that specific subject. He didn't retract. He just stopped pushing. And every time he said something with real institutional weight behind it, the pressure that followed was patient, organized, and came from multiple directions at once. It was never one big thing. It was 100 small things, consistently applied over years. And that is exactly what makes it so hard to point at and name. But that's not the weirdest part. One key piece of evidence fans keep coming back to is what happened in 2015. Many believe this is the moment everything shifted for Jim. Jim's former girlfriend, Katt Williams, died. She was 30 years old. Jim Carrey was devastated. After her death, he went through years of legal proceedings and intense public scrutiny. A wrongful death lawsuit filed by her family, depositions, court filings that became public record. Everything that had happened in that relationship pulled out into the open and examined in detail under the glare of press coverage that never seemed to let up. And through all of it, the grief, the legal battles, the sustained press attention, Jim Carrey became largely silent in ways that had simply never been true of him before. Not just quieter about controversial topics, quieter in general, less present, less willing to be in rooms where cameras were pointed at him and someone might ask the wrong question. The man who had spent 3 decades being the loudest, most uncontainable person in any room became someone who seemed to be carefully managing how much of himself he put into public spaces. The political speeches got softer, the art got less pointed, the willingness to stand in front of power and name it directly, that faded slowly, then all at once. And when he did resurface, it was in a different way, more controlled, more managed, more like a man who had learned that speaking freely came with a cost he was no longer willing to pay. Now, I want to be clear about the next part and what I am not saying. The state of New Mexico recently reopened a formal criminal inquiry into Zorro Ranch, the sprawling property once owned by Jeffrey Epstein. This is not internet speculation. This is not YouTube commentary. A sitting state attorney general announced renewed prosecutorial review. Bipartisan state representatives pushed forward a resolution to establish a formal truth commission specifically on what happened at that property. reality. The New Mexico House passed it. These are documented, verifiable facts. Some fans online have connected this renewed institutional attention on powerful networks to Jim's reappearance after years of relative quiet. The thinking goes like this. People who were vocal about how Hollywood and its power structures actually operate went silent at a specific identifiable point in time. And now, as the Epstein investigation gets new official attention from government bodies, some of those same people are beginning to resurface and show back up in public spaces. There is no direct evidence connecting Jim Carrey to any of this. None. I want to be absolutely clear about that. What fans are pointing to is entirely circumstantial. It is pattern recognition, not proof. You can look at those dots and connect them, or you can choose not to, but I think you deserve to see them laid out plainly so you can make that call yourself. So when you put the whole timeline together, the Paris moment hits differently. Jim Carrey spends 3 decades as one of the loudest, most provocative voices in Hollywood. He names things people at his level aren't supposed to name. He does it consistently and repeatedly. He faces sustained pressure every single time he does it. Then, something devastating happens in his personal life that puts him under legal and public scrutiny for years. And then, slowly at first, then all at once, he goes quiet. And then he shows up in Paris, composed, measured, formally dressed, smiling warmly at the audience, giving a speech in French to a room full of exactly the kind of powerful industry people he spent years criticizing, saying absolutely nothing that could make a single person in that room uncomfortable. The man who once told a reporter on a red carpet that none of this was real is now standing inside all of it, accepting its highest honors, performing exactly the role the machine asks its icons to perform. Back then, people said he was just being spiritual. Others said he had seen the dark side of fame. Now, fans fast forward to Paris and ask, did something change? Could he have reversed everything he believed overnight? Critics say it doesn't track. And now they're going back through everything with new eyes. Here's where I land on all of this. I don't believe in clones. I'm not going to tell you some facility produced a replacement and slipped him into the Cesar Awards. That is not what the evidence supports, and that is not what this channel does. What I do believe is that grief is real. That loss changes people permanently in ways that don't fully surface until years after the thing that caused them. That spending years in legal proceedings while the press picks apart the worst moment of your life does something that does not simply reverse when the lawsuit ends. That the kind of sustained institutional pressure Jim faced every time he said something real, patient, coordinated, coming from multiple directions, wears people down in ways that are quiet and slow and almost invisible. Until one day you see them on a stage in Paris and something that used to be there is just gone. He didn't get replaced. He got worn down. And maybe that is the saddest version of this story, that the system didn't have to do anything dramatic or visible. It just had to keep showing up, keep applying pressure, keep making the cost of speaking out slightly higher every single time, until one day the math changed and the man who used to say everything decided it wasn't worth it anymore to say anything at all. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Paris Jim is the most settled, most grounded, most authentically himself version of this man, and he simply decided that fame really was an illusion, and he was done performing inside it, that the red carpet speech was the real him all along, and what we're grieving is just a character he used to play. But something tells me the man who looked into that camera and said, "I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe you exist," that man is still in there, still watching, still knowing exactly what he knows, just deciding, for whatever reason, that today is not the day he says it out loud. Remember what Katt Williams said, they get all the whistleblowers. So, what do you think really happened to Jim Carrey? Did he grow, change, and find peace? Or is something bigger going on here that the internet has been right about all along? Because fans are not letting this one go. The comments on every clip from that Paris ceremony are still going. People are still posting comparisons, still going back through the old interviews, still asking the same question they asked the day those clips dropped. What happened to Jim Carrey? That is the question this whole video started with. And after going through all of it, the Paris clips, the old speeches, the red carpet interviews, the legal battles, the long silence. I don't think there's one clean answer, but I do think the question itself is worth asking out loud. This community does not play about this kind of thing, and I genuinely want to read every single take you have. I'll be in the comments reading them. And if you're not subscribed yet, look, only a small percentage of the people watching this channel right now are actually subscribed. You just sat through this entire video. You clearly care about getting the real story and not just the version everyone already knows. You're exactly who this channel is built for. So let's fix that right now. Hit subscribe and make sure you don't miss the next one. Stay tapped in for more gossip, and I'll see you in the next one.